Thanks, Stephanie. Welcome, everybody. Um, I'm going to talk today about secure test environments, and I want to give you a little bit of idea of some things we've encountered on the K-12 level in terms of how to keep our test environment secure. I'd like to, before I do that, I normally don't give a lot of biographical information when I start these things, but I know we've got a mixed crowd today. We've been ExamSoft customers since March of 2015, so just a little under a year. So we're a K-12 school, and I'll give you my school's demographics in a minute. But about me, I've also got 10 plus years of higher ed experience. I've taught undergraduates and graduates in information systems, computer science, educational technology, and graduate education. So I've got, my experience today comes from a mix of K-12 and higher ed. So I'm not just speaking, directly about the experiences that I have in K-12, but also those of higher ed, because I know a good number of you higher ed customers. Bergen Catholic High School is, as of last week, we were 723, all boys, and approximately 60 faculty. We draw from about 90 towns in the New York metropolitan area. We are in New Jersey, which is not a suburb of New York. We're a college prep school where just about all of our seniors attend college. Average class size is around 22, 23 students, and tuition is approximately $16,000 a year. We've been a one-to-one laptop in 2002. This year, we're halfway through a Mac rollout. So our freshmen, sophomores, and new transfers have MacBook Airs, 11-inch MacBook Airs, and 32-gig iPad Minis. Our juniors and seniors right now have Lenovo tablets. Those are being phased out. So we're half and half. There are some students, upperclassmen, juniors, and seniors that do have Macs as well. So when it comes to cheating, when it comes to secure test environments, there's a couple of things where I'm coming from. I trust the kids are going to do the right thing, but I'm going to verify they do the right thing. Okay? So I like Ronald Reagan's trust but verify. I think it's important as a teacher, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, whether you're an instructor or a proctor of a test, is to be vigilant. And I tell the kids all the time, if you're thinking about doing something, I've tried it twice. Okay, so I know the tricks. And if I don't know the tricks, I'm going to learn the tricks. Right? And I don't believe inherently that students are just going to cheat for no reason. I also don't believe that any students are bad, rotten to the core type students. I think a lot of students cheat because they have the opportunity to cheat, or they're given the opportunity to cheat based on the actions of the proctor in the room. And I'm going to talk about some of those scenarios in a little bit. I found this quote. This was in an article that I read as I was researching the content for today's webinar about being vigilant. I have a lot of teachers who say, put your cell phones in your backpacks, but then just sit at their desks when we take the test, she says. And they really never look up. It's just really easy to cheat in those classes. You just keep your cell phone in your laptop, in your lap, under your desk, and look down. It's all about, I think, being vigilant. As teachers, you know that if you sit at your desk, and you can think about your experiences as a student, if you sit at your desk, or your teacher sat at the desk for the entire testing time, and you sat in the back of the room, there's a greater chance or an ease that you potentially could cheat on a test because the teacher wasn't walking around checking what you were doing. You had an opportunity. And I think, I'm not going to talk today about the why kids cheat, but I certainly know that if given the opportunity, there's a higher probability that they may cheat because of the exam environment. So if we're not keeping it secure, then there's a greater probability that the students may cheat. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about high-tech cheating. A lot of this stuff, some of it was new to me as I was looking at different forms of cheating, things to look out for when you're giving the test. Now, this is true. It doesn't matter if they're taking a test in the exam or things off on a test on paper. Just because they're doing computer-based testing doesn't lessen the likelihood that they may be dishonest. Right? So one of the things that caught my attention right away was a smartwatch. Right? Now the picture on the left is certainly a nice staged picture, but a smartwatch, and some of the newer ones, like the ones on the bottom right, you might not necessarily know that's a smartwatch. And I know for our faculty that was a an eye-opening experience for them when I started showing them before our midterm exam period some of the different types of smartwatches. So a lot of teachers, came up with a box or a basket. Okay, leave your cell phones and your watches in the front of the room before you take the test, because if you are, the average teacher and you're looking at kids looking at his watch, okay, he's looking to see what time it is, what time we started the test, whatever. He's not necessarily, you wouldn't think that he's looking on the internet for something or communicating with somebody else. So, the watch is definitely something to look out for. And again, I'm not saying every kid that wears a smartwatch or a Bluetooth watch is going to engage in some type of cheating, but it's a possibility. And we felt the best way to negate that was just, okay, well, leave your watch in the front, or you got to put it, it has to be covered on your arm, whatever the case is, so that it's, it's not being accessed, or it's, the student isn't looking at it. This is pretty cool. This is a button camera. This is a device that it looks like a button. It sits, in the buttonhole of a button-down shirt. You could use it as for still pictures or video. So I could use this to transmit video to somebody else who's helping me. I could be recording the test questions for somebody else. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about device placement. Certainly, if you're taking an ExamSoft test on an iPad and that iPad is flat on your desk, this is going to be a little hard to do because, again, I'm the proctor. Why is that student, bending over to almost put their their chest or shirt over their test? That's suspicious behavior. But if you're using a laptop, could easily be able to take either real-time video or take pictures of the exam that's in front of you, right? And it's not that big. And really, I don't know about you, but if I saw this, this shirt, and from 20 feet away, even from 2 feet away, I'm not sure I would know that that's the camera underneath that button. Okay, so that's something else to look out for. Bluetooth earpieces. These are incredibly small. So you could put actually lodge the earpiece in the ear so that's invisible. There's a little tab that you could actually pull it out. I think I'd be afraid that it would get stuck in there permanently. But now you've got the ability to listen to audio. It could either be it's a wireless earpiece, Bluetooth. So it could be, you could just be on your cell phone. Even dare I say, the teacher makes you leave your phone either out, or if they collect it, the Bluetooth, the range might be strong enough that you can still communicate with it. Right? So this requires, most likely you might be collaborating with somebody else on the outside, but again, it's not something, I'm not sure I'd be looking in every student's ears to see if there's anything inside them, but this is a possibility. And as I do have to say, in looking at these different technologies, as technology advances and as advances, rapidly, there's a lot of new things that are coming out in terms of cheating that you really have to keep on top of. It's surprising how much new stuff is out there. Stuff that even I consider myself a kind of techie, but I wouldn't have known some of this stuff was out there. And it's not, if you look, it's not ridiculously expensive to purchase. You could potentially get it on Craigslist or eBay or somebody's website, and it's not, you're not paying hundreds of dollars to get some of this high-tech cheating paraphernalia. This I like. This is a scientific calculator, but it's got it's cut out, and you can fit an iPhone 5 in there. The iPhone 5, the one I have, is really small, so it looks like a normal scientific calculator. So you start your test, you take the piece off, and now you've got access to the internet underneath your calculator. I'm using the calculator. Depending how I sit as a student, you might not necessarily know that I've got, who would think that you've got an iPhone underneath, okay? You're told for your test and your calculator, oh, I have a calculator, but I have my iPhone underneath that. And now I've got full range, full access to the internet under my calculator. Again, this goes to vigilance. It goes to what are you, as a teacher, as a proctor, what are you doing during that test? Are you, and I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to talk about the placement in rooms and stuff in a little bit, but are you moving around the room? Do you look at, the student's work area? Is there anything on their desk that shouldn't be? Is there anything they're doing that's suspicious? Think of yourself as a student. Well, if I was going to cheat, how would I do it? And you're looking for almost that same behavior in the students. Are they doing something with their hands, with their arms? Are they looking somewhere? Is something out of place? Something just not seem right? Does this student who normally, sits in a slouch, all of a sudden sitting in a different manner? Right? Anything that might lead you to believe that they may be acting in a dishonest way. This was a video that I found. This was a BBC news clip about students in India. This vest, it was glorified T-shirt, but you could buy this. It was at, I think they said it was at a deli, or like the equivalent of a convenience store. And it's got the white piece is a cellular transmitter. This guy has the microphone. If you see my arrow on the screen here, it's right here. There's a hidden microphone, and he's got a little Bluetooth earpiece buried inside his ear. Okay, so he's able to communicate with someone. Now, again, as a professor, as a teacher in a class of 30 students, I might find it weird if a kid was talking to to his or her shirt or his or her chest. But in an amphitheater, maybe with 300 students, I might not see that. And it might be you don't really need to make a lot of noise with these microphones that are ultra sensitive, and I've got the earpiece right in my ear, so it's not that difficult. You may be able to say, to ask a question and then get an answer. Right? So, and again, this wasn't, that expensive. This is not, thousands of dollars in high-tech cheating. And you're really looking at that picture, you really wouldn't know that this guy has concealed a transmitter, a microphone, and he's got an earpiece in his ear. It just looks normal. This application is called PhotoMath. I wish they had this stuff when I was in school. This works with, it's an optical scanner that works on your iPhone, your Android phone, iPad. It's like a barcode scanner, but it'll look for a mathematical equation and solve it for you. Right? Now, part of it is, again, if I'm the teacher, why potentially would a student have a phone in their hand? You'd have to actually bring the phone up over the test, just to scan that particular equation. So it might look a little odd, but at the same time, you could get an instant answer. And if I don't have to prove my work or show any type of scrap paper with my work on it, this is ideal. Okay? But again, it's, goes back to exam taker behavior. What is the student doing? Why potentially there'd be no reason why a student would have his or her phone in his or her hand during the test. Okay? Let alone, bring it up above the test to actually take a picture or scan in this case to get an answer. Right? But it's out there. If you're giving, a take home or you're doing something, this potentially is software that's out there, and it was available for free. Virtual keyboard. So I can display a keyboard. Maybe it would kind of look, maybe I have my phone or I have something on the desk in front of me, and it would look it would give it away if I had the actual phone out. But with the virtual keyboard, I could use the desk as my keyboard, and I could type. If maybe I needed to type something or I'm searching for something, these are out there as well. This is a Bluetooth pen. A Bluetooth pen that'll record the MP3 files or any type of audio, so I could speak into the pen. So maybe you have to think that, not students might be collaborating with another student, they might be cheating with somebody else, or they might be cheating for themselves and then are going to disseminate that test information to somebody else, which, maybe for money. So let's say I take the test first period of the day, and I speak into this pen, and I record every question on the test. And then someone else plays it back, and I sell this. I say, I just give you a pen. Teacher might not know the wiser. I give the pen to the kid who has the test last period of the day, and I say, for $100, here's the test. Then it's all recorded. You just have to listen to the questions, listen to the answers, write down the answers, whatever. Okay, it looks like a normal pen. You'd have to look at it closely to see, oh wow, there's buttons on here. What exactly is going on. But from the front of the room, if I'm the teacher at the front of the room sitting at my desk, the kid in the back of the room, it looks like a normal pen. They're just writing. Who would think that they're actually recording information into the pen? Will this be something that, is this our pre-exam requirement? Will we be giving students the wand, looking for, anything that they have on their person? Will we be looking for radio transmission? Will we have to think about, jamming all type of electromagnetic signal, if you will? What are we going to do to prevent that? What are we going to do to prevent cheating? Is this, before I take the SAT in 20 years, am I going to have to get wanded? Okay. As the technology emerges, we as educators have to emerge with it. We can't, still believe that kids are, just using a cheat sheet or a little, jib note or something written on the palm of their hand. Okay. As the technology evolves, we have to evolve with that. And part of that is looking at, studying what's out there to see, is there, what new ways are there to cheat. Now, there might be a ton of things that I haven't even touched on yet, and I'm sure there are. But I think that's a big part of it, is just looking what's out there. I was really, honestly surprised. And then, after the surprise was off, it's like, oh, wow, what a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? There's a lot of ingenious inventions out there. I got some not so high techs. Now, you remember the good old days where you could write on the inside of your water bottle label. So this is a nice example. There's some nice typed notes inside the water bottle label. So teachers kind of got wise to that, right? But let me ask you this: how many of you actually read the label itself? So here is a template. I could print out this Aquafina label, and I could actually change the text on the label. So I look at my water bottle. I do that now. I look at students. I glance at the inside of the label and see if there's anything written on there. But I can tell you as a fact, I don't actually read the label. Oh, it looks like an Aquafina or a Coke bottle or a Poland Springs label. Oh, I wouldn't even think to read the label. So I found that lickety-split. I found vitamin water, Coke, and Aquafina. Okay, so not so high-tech, but still employing a technology method to, to bring something into your testing room. And I'm going to talk to you about some best practices in a little bit, but one of them is, do you let your students bring anything? Are they allowed to drink anything? Are they allowed to have anything in hand except a writing implement or their device they're taking the test on, whatever? Because now it's I have to look at the label, I have to look at the cap maybe, I got to look at what's on the actual label. So it's a lot. Okay? It's more than just looking at the inside of the label and see if anything's written on it. This is the old text instruments. There's two things here. You can either, on the left, there's a picture of a program that if I put in, I think this was, I don't remember what the program was. I got help on this one. But you put in what A, B, and C are, and you get an answer. It could be any type of formula. Or I could just put in my own notes into the TI-80 any series memory. So I did force equals M times A. So I remember that. Okay. Now, if I'm a teacher, maybe I go through and I myself clear everyone's calculator before the exam, which I didn't do. I don't have a picture of it. But the other thing is putting a little cheat sheet under the cover of the calculator. So you slide up the calculator, and underneath it is some handwritten or typed notes, whatever, taped, or stuck right to the inside of the cover of the TI. Any of the 81, 84, 86 doesn't matter. This is one that it's okay when you actually talk to your students. It's okay when, and I think you have to be receptive when students come to you. There are times where students have come to me and said, "Listen, Mr. Spiegel, this is what's going on, and I'm not happy with it." And I think a lot of times that I'm not out to punish the kids who are cheating. I'm out to protect the kids that are doing it right. And let me say that again. I'm not out to punish the kids that are cheating. I'm out to protect the kids that are doing it right, that are doing the right thing, and have a measurable amount of integrity when taking their test. Now, this is the ID card that all our kids have to wear. And someone brought to my attention, by the way, It's a great spot to stick, you know, some notes on the back. Now, I downloaded this off the internet. It's a geometry formula sheet. I shrunk it down. I printed it out. I then realized I think I need reading glasses because I couldn't read what was on there. But, you know, oh, I have to wear my ID card. No one would think twice about that. And, you know, my ID card, when I wear it, sometimes it lays on my desk depending on what kind of desk I'm sitting in, whatnot. Or I decide, oh, it's clunky, I'm going to take it off. Who would think twice about that? But there's notes on the back. It might not be a lot. You can't fit a lot, you know, without drawing attention to it, but I don't even have to do anything with my hands. It goes right around my neck when I leave, and no one knows the wiser. Okay? Not so high-tech, but employing some type of technology to get there. Scantrons. When we moved to ExamSoft, that one of our things, we got rid of Scantron machine. I'm sure some of you know the first trick, you erase the wrong answer after the test and hand it back. I can say from experience that sometimes works depending on the teacher. Well, look, you know, I had this question right and it marked it wrong. Okay. I've also been told, which I've not been able to verify, but if you rub Vaseline on the bottom area where it reads each question, you can get all the questions right. I've not tried that, but I've heard that. So, you know, just because the medium is different doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, there might be, you know, more or less cheating. But one of the reasons, like I said, we went to ExamSoft, we were trying to eliminate any shenanigans with the Scantrons, because I know that there are issues with grading them, you know, because, you know, experience both as a student and a teacher. Tough layouts. Now, if you are, these are some labs at the various colleges that I teach at. This is kind of tough. So I think the best place for a teacher or a proctor to be is in the back of the room, because this way I can see everybody's screen. Okay? What I can't see is your face, though, because sometimes your face is a dead giveaway as to if you're up to no good. But at least I can see everybody's screen from the back of the room. Now, the problem with this room, I can't. With the body in front of every computer, I can't see everybody's screen. What would help is if I was elevated maybe about 2 feet off the ground. Not a lot, just enough so that I could see past and over and around heads, and I can see everybody's screen. And I could also see body movements. But me standing at the back of this room, it was challenging. I wouldn't say it was impossible. I kind of had to move back and forth, you know, from the left to the right. But it wasn't possible. But it wasn't, you know, it wasn't easy. This is a different room I've also proctored in. This isn't as wide, so it wasn't as bad. But I've got, if you notice, the other room, let me go back a second. The other room, I have space in the back of the room here, whereas in this room, I'm right against the wall. So if I'm standing right where my cursor is, or actually in the bottom right picture, I'm standing with my back to the wall, I can hardly see the students to my right, and there are 4 workstations to my right. I can't see them. Okay? That's very tough. I have to put my back to the wall, turn my head, and kind of lean over to actually see if they're on a different screen or whatever. Okay, so that room's a little tough. Same idea. If I was elevated, might help, but that back right corner, that's a tough spot to see. I would in this type of setup, it would be helpful if those desks were up about 5 feet. That would give me some room to maneuver behind the last row. Okay. This one, ideal. I mean, if I'm in the front of the room, I could see 90% of those computers. I could look at everybody's screen. I like the fact that the desktops are stood up like towers. These are actual desktops on their side, but it kind of serves as a little partition. But then I've got these here. I've got 2, 4, and then I think there's 2 in the back. So there's 6 that I can't see at all from my point in the front of the room. Okay? So if this didn't have the pod in the middle, this would be a pretty decent room. And I like the fact that the computers create a little bit of a barrier in between each workstation. These are some sample layouts of how we laid out our K-12 at Bergen Catholic, our classrooms for exams. This one pits every, we've got desks around the outside, and then we put 2 rows facing one another. the idea here is, hey, and I'll show you when I do device placement, it's like Battleship. But if you're taking a test on the iPad, it's kind of tough. You might be able to do it, but if you're going to look at the person on the other side, you have to be able to read upside down, determine if they're on the same question as you, and what answer they're choosing. Okay, and it's also kind of a dead giveaway if I'm not looking at my computer, but I'm looking at someone else's, looking at the person on the other side of me, or in front of me, I should say. On the side, it would be obvious if I was doing that. This layout is similar. Everybody's they're spread out, so it's much more difficult for me to look to the right or to the left. I can still look across if we're using the iPad, but you know, a little bit more difficult in terms of going from side to side. I like this layout. The teacher actually is in the back corner here. This is the teacher's desk, and there's space. We put, rather than put this row together, we put their backs together, so there's space between each one. So if I'm going to try and look at the person on the other side of me, I'd actually have to really strain to look across this gap to see what the other person's doing. Right? I think I like this layout the best. And this is a smaller classroom. This classroom had, I want to say, 35 or 36 students in it. So this was a really good setup, and the teacher had a good vantage point where the teacher could see pretty much everybody, whether she was sitting or standing. You know, this might be the where we're moving with computer-based testing. You know, do we end up with a real secure environment that, you know, when you take your test in an area like this, you have a workstation that not only you're on a secure device, but maybe you're being recorded, audio, video, from a multitude of angles. Okay, so this kind of takes the curiosity level out. I'm not looking at my neighbor because there's a partition between us. I can see everybody from this point. If I was standing here, now granted, I can't see what the people facing me are doing per se, but if the computer is, you know, locked down, and I'm comfortable with the fact that they can't access anything else on the computer, and they don't have a phone or anything, you know, I'm okay with this. I'm also okay with maybe that I've got 2, 3, 4 teachers or proctors working throughout the room. Maybe they each have a row. They're each assigned a certain area. And they're also, you know, as I'm walking down looking at my students, I might be looking at somebody else. Okay, so the more eyes that are on this group, the better. This is a Pearson VUE. I got this off the Pearson VUE website. You know, this is a secure exam room. I've taken tests in a Pearson VUE setting before. This is it. You've got someone in a fish tank that's able to see what everybody's doing, and there's a ton of cameras in here, and it's a real secure environment. You know, and again, are we, you know, if we're going to give computer-based tests, and especially for those of you that are, you know, that do with national certification exams and stuff, is this the kind of setting that we have to have in order to, you know, ensure test integrity? You know, that there's really little to no way you could cheat. You can't cheat off of one another. Potentially, maybe if you had to watch something, but again, that proctor can see she's watching all of you or all of the people in this picture. But also, you see the monitor over here. She's got a whole bunch of different camera angles to see exactly what you're doing. So maybe this is where we kind of have to think. Well, maybe I can't have this. I've got 300 people in the class. I can't do this, but I want to replicate this. I want to have this type of environment. How do I do something like this, you know, in my institution? I love this picture. This was our senior exams last year. Bergen Catholic, we used to do for as long as I can remember, and I was a student. I started in 1991. We used to give exams in the classroom, senior exams, underclassmen and finals. They were given in the classroom by subject. We changed that last year. We did it by period of the schedule. So day 1, period 1, day 1, period 2, and so forth. For all our seniors, we did it in the gym. Now, I like this picture because we put 200 plus kids in the gym. We put anywhere upwards of 6 kids at a table. But again, if they might not be taking the same test. Now, notice this kid's looking at the other kid, but they might not be taking the same test. If they're taking a secure ExamSoft test and the questions are scrambled, there's no guarantee they're on the same question, have the answers in the same order. And plus, the other thing I like, we put tech support, that's me, by the way, right in the middle on the BC. I've got a teacher here, I've got me here, I've got someone over here, I've got one over there. So I've got, potentially 10 sets of eyes looking at these 200 kids. So as I'm walking, even though I'm looking at my students, as I look up in front of me, I'm also looking at someone else's students. So this was really cool. And we also had someone, this is from the camera loft, if you will. This is like the second floor of the gymnasium. I've got a bird's eye view of the entire gymnasium. Now, this was only our senior class. I could have easily fit another 200 kids in here. I could have had half of my school population in the gym taking their exams. So this was a way, we were okay with the fact that they were sitting next to each other. Like I said, the tests were secure, randomized. And again, we said, okay, maybe you're taking, you're all taking the same, your day one, period one classes exam. We switched up the classes. We just pretty much said sit where you want, or we assigned you, okay, this seat at every table is an English class. This seat is a math class. This seat is a history class, and so forth. So that there was no issue of I'm going to sit next to the same kid in my class. I'm not going to be able to sit next to that person. I can sit across from them because then it's, I can't look at his or her screen. Right? So this was very successful, by the way, and we're going to employ this again this year for our final exams. Device placement I was talking about before. I took this picture. I'm sitting in the desk next to this one, and there's an ExamSoft test open on that iPad. I can't see what's on the screen. I'd have to actually either change my posture. I'd have to lean over because I can't read what's going on there. So this is an ideal placement for an iPad. If you're giving a soft test, test, if you will, on the iPad, this is ideal. Why would a student need to hold up the iPad? Yeah, maybe if they're using an external keyboard, they had it propped up, but really there's no reason why you would have the iPad propped up. So this is ideal in terms of wandering eyes. These are the little Nova tablets that were facing out, but rather than having in laptop mode, you can swivel it and put it in tablet mode. Perfect. Right? So again, it achieves almost the same results as the iPad. It's flat on the desk. So it requires you to, to strain to look to see what your partner, your neighbor is doing. If the test is given on the laptop, this was a perspective of me looking over the shoulder of the kid in front of me. So I could kind of figure out, if he chose the answer, I could figure out that's the answer. I'd have to kind of strain to see what question he may or may not be on, but that's a possibility. This is like my least favorite position. If I'm using laptops, I'm going to do something like this. This is Battleship. Okay? I'm playing Battleship from the 1980s. I've got two facing off, and this is much better. That kind of like the placement number 3 I showed you before, the room layout, where I've got students back to back, and then there's a space in between, so they're not looking at what's on one another's screens. Okay? Some best practices, some stuff that now in a year with ExamSoft we found, and plus this is my 10 years plus of higher ed. You need to clearly define what cheating is. We have a defined policy in our student handbook at Bergen Catholic of what cheating is, what we define cheating is, and what are the repercussions if you do cheat and you're caught. Okay? So you have to clearly define it. What is it? What does it entail? And and it has to be updated over time. It has to include things like a smartphone or a smartwatch or a cheat sheet behind your ID card and stuff like that. I think as much as you need to trust but verify, at the same time you need to suspect everything. Okay? I had a student come to me about 2 months ago, and he said to me, my test uploaded before I was done, and that's not fair, and I want to retest. And the teacher had let him out, and and so I'm faced with this. What really happened? The student uploaded, and after after a lot of dialogue, I finally got the truth that the student uploaded the test, realized he got 2 questions wrong, knew what he did wrong, and wanted to do a retake, so figured he could blame it was an ExamSoft error. What did I do? I looked in the logs. I saw that he requested an exit at 11:14:25. At 11:14:26, he entered the decision screen to close and continue with ExamSoft. or with this particular test. Okay, there was no getting around this. And once he was presented with this, he realized there was nothing he could do, and he admitted to the truth that this is what he did. But without that log, I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to prove that. But these logs are very good, and it's really, if you're going to use ExamSoft, you have to know how to read the logs. I even just to further it, I went with my, I called my account manager and I said, I want you to look at this and make sure I'm seeing the right thing, and she absolutely agreed with me. So it was a home run in this case. But the idea, the skill for the teachers is, well, let's look at the log. What does the log say? And what the student was telling me and what the log was telling me were two different things. I'm going to believe the log because the log's not lying to me. This is what happened at this particular time, right? And it was clear. He requested exit, and he was at the decision screen to close, and he closed the test. Standard for test administration. What are your policies for when you administer a test about personal items? If you're taking a ExamSoft test on your iPad or on your laptop, whatever, are you allowed to bring a charger? Do you need scrap paper for whatever reason? What about your phone, about your watch, about whatever? Okay? Are you allowed to leave the room? Do you allow students to leave the room? I don't. And not every one of my colleagues agrees with me, but I tell students if you need to use the bathroom, you go before we start, or if there's a logical, if the multiple part exam, when you get to a breaking point, then I'll let them go. But I can't guarantee test integrity as soon as that student walks out of the room. Okay? So, I hear kids who have, who've got an issue with their bladder, they have to go to the bathroom. I get that, I hear it, but do I want to have an honest testing room? Do I want to keep the integrity of that test? So that's a tough question. That's where I lean. But there are times where even if I say there's no bathroom, I'm hoping that I don't have to deal with a kid that's or an adult for that matter who's telling me they got to go to the bathroom. And how am I going to tell them no? Right? How do you deal with questions? Is everybody supposed to stay seated? If you have a question, do I come to you? If I come to you, that means I may have my back to somebody else. Or do I let you come to me? But if that's the case, then you're up and you potentially can look at other students' screens. I don't have an answer for that one. That's up, that's an individual preference. I'm not sure. Cycle questions. So I don't use the same questions all the time. I periodically refresh what questions I'm using, even if I change the answer series. So this year it's A, B, C, D, and next year it's C, D, A, B. Okay? I scramble what the questions, the series are. Maybe I just use a different question altogether. I use the same question, but I change the numbers kind of thing. Whatever it is, so that you're not using the same exact questions. Plan your room layout. I advise my teachers at Bergen to do that before exams. If you're going to give your midterm exam, try actually laying out the room. Try it with a practice test. Lay out the room, or just take an hour after school, move the desks, see how you like it. Can you move back and forth? It's just like a dry run if you're going to give a presentation. How you lay out the room. Allow a cheat sheet. And this is one of those where my colleagues are, Al, what do you mean? Exactly what I said. Allow the kids to use a cheat sheet. I have one in a couple of slides, and I'll show you what I mean. What's wrong with allowing them to bring notes? And this goes back to, too, like, why am I giving this test? I'm giving a test that's got 3 essay questions. So maybe I tell the students ahead of time, I'm going to give you, here's a pool of 10 questions. I'm going to ask you 3 of them. You can prepare them. So do I want students to do I want a cold, quick response based on, first reaction, or do I want them to prepare something to think about the question and give me a real good educated answer when they come in to take the test? In terms of ExamSoft, I recommend to my teachers at a minimum, there's 4 real skills they need to know when they're giving their tests. Number 1, how do I increase a download? And for all of these, not only how do I, but why am I doing this? When a student says to you as a proctor, I need another download. Maybe they have a loaner computer, and which you can verify. But why do you need another download? And it's not just I want to pass this off to to the IT people and need a download. Well, why do you need a download? And if it's a legitimate reason, sure, I can give you one. But you'd want to know that ahead of time. Resume codes. I would be suspect of any student that needed a resume code or continuation code for their exam. Now certainly if they're taking their test in front of me, that's one thing. But if a student came to me and as soon as the test starts, it needed a resume code, something's not right. Why do you need a resume code? You just started that test. Is there anything that leads me to believe that you may have seen that test ahead of time? Okay? Verifying uploads. Okay? Our standard practice is, kid gets a green screen. That's their verification. I'm going to look for a verified upload date. I have that in a future slide. I'm going to make sure that I'm seeing it on my end. Okay? You're not allowed to leave our testing room until that's been verified. That's our standing rule. So there's no issues of, well, I went home and the test's on there, now my hard drive went bad, now I lost my exam. If you have to upload your exam, and the teacher has to verify the exam before you walk out of the room. Otherwise, you don't leave the room until we figure it out. And with the senior picture I showed you a couple slides ago, that's why the IT support staff was right in the middle there. If there's any issues, we'll deal with it right then and there. Okay? We recommend secure scramble tests all the time. There's really probably no reason not to, in our environment. Certainly the scrambling of the questions and or answers gives the, it's more difficult. The mathematical probability that me and my buddy next to me are going to have the same question at the same time is rather small. And then if the students need tools, throughout the test, let them use the calculator that's built into the soft test. Let them use the spell check. Let them use the highlight text. Whatever the case is, if you've got a built-in calculator, you only need the students to do basic arithmetic. Why are they bringing another device? Why can't they just use, what's built in the soft test? There's my cheat sheet. My concept of a cheat sheet came from my sophomore year statistics class on Iona. My professor let me bring one piece of paper with whatever I wanted on it, and this is a piece of that. I still save these because guess what? As a teacher, I tell my students, you want to bring a piece of paper, sometimes I let them bring two, with whatever you want on it. The idea is, A, I'm forcing them to study because they're coming in with they're making their notes their own, they're rewriting or they're typing or whatever the case is, but now they've got something that, they don't have to commit everything to memory, and this is a great study guide. Once I did this is my sophomore year for statistics, I did this on my own for almost every class. This is how I would prepare for an exam. So I'm forcing you to cheat because how many times a student says to you, oh yeah, I didn't need to cheat because I wrote a cheat sheet, and when you write a cheat sheet, you're actually studying for the test. That's what I said about uploading confirmation. We look for the kid has the green screen on the left, and we check for an upload date on the right. And you're not allowed to leave until I've seen both. Looking at the logs, as I said before, hey, I had a student tell me last June, my ExamSoft randomly closed. This isn't fair. He had his guidance counselor in tow, the whole 9 yards. I looked at the log. You ran out of time. So my ExamSoft randomly closed? No, not really. It didn't. Okay, you ran out of time. My computer crashed. Now this one, and this is a staged log. It did. It did. This test was interrupted. I don't know why, but I know that it was, and I could see the times that it was. Okay. Now, also, if you notice the time is 11:29 p.m. Why were you accessing a test at 11:29 p.m.? All right. So there's something there. There's something that I want to investigate further. Okay. Absentee procedure. If you're absent for a test at Bergen Catholic, some teachers will repost the same test. We force them to provide a download password. So when you come in for your makeup test, you have to download the test in front of us. So you're not taking a test that you haven't started any other test. You have to download in front of us. Different assessment password. Some teachers will give new tests altogether. Even if they just duplicate the assessment, but they'll call it something different. It gives the illusion, if you will, that it's a different test. Okay? And some will give out and out new questions. Okay? So we definitely keep track of, if a kid that's absent, we're going to look and see, if you're absent, we're going to give you a different test, different passwords, all that. And the other thing is, and I had this from personal experience, is a higher ed thing. I'm giving a test. It was a different testing solution. I'm giving a test, and I took attendance, and I had 20, let's say 22 students in the class. The next morning, I go to grade the test. There's 23 tests that were taken. And I'm like, wait a minute. I know this one student wasn't there. I was racking my brain. Like, did I mess up as a teacher? So when I went to look at the posting time, the student started the test about a half hour after I ended the class. It was an open and shut case. Like, but if I didn't have that, maybe he was there. Maybe I missed it. Okay? So taking accurate attendance is really important too. If you're a proctor, if you're an instructor. So this way, there's no, I know who was here, and I therefore know whose test I should have uploaded. This kid had an upload. He wasn't in class, and turns out he took the test in his dorm room, thinking that that I wouldn't notice, but I did. I know I've talked for a while. I'm certainly welcome to right now questions and comments and all that. Certainly, there's some contact information if you think of something in a day or a week, and if you want to get in touch with me, I'm certainly I'm open to that. I know Stephanie is lurking somewhere nearby, and she's probably going to ask you if you have any questions, or she's going to direct some questions my way. So with that, certainly, if you got questions, I'm all ears.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Al. That was a very informative presentation. I had no idea cheating had gotten so high-tech. Crazy. We are going to go ahead and open the forum up for a Q&A right now, and the questions are already coming in, absolutely. So we're going to dive right in. The first question that came in was, what are the most common methods of cheating that you've seen, or is there anything really strange that you've personally come across?
A lot of the stuff that I've described, I've gotten anything from a cheat sheet under the palm of the hand, a kid in a cast, having stuff either written on the cast, stuck in the cast. I've had students like tape something to the back of the kid in front of them. I've had write stuff, and I've worked in 2 different schools with both genders. I've had students write stuff on all different parts of the bodies. I'll leave that to the imagination. But you really have to think like, wow, if I was, if I'm going to cheat, I'm not going to do it where the teacher's going to know that, okay, look at my hands, or check my calculator cover or something like that. I'm going to do something maybe on the inside of my tie, or I'm going to do something, in my calculator cover, something that's, they're not going to immediately think. One of them, again, I'll chalk this up to personal experience and leave it at that. If you're a teacher, you sit at your desk for the whole period. If my book bag is allowed to be near me, I have my book bag open, leaning up against the leg of my desk, and I have a book or I have something inside my book bag. So I just have to kind of look down at that, and my book or whatever is open inside there. And this was clearly because the teacher didn't get up. It made it easy, not particularly say that the student wanted to, or maybe even needed to, but the opportunity was there and it was so easy. So that's another one. But it could be as creative or as ingenious as you can imagine. And there's, like I said, I'm sure there's stuff that's going on that I don't even know about, but those were a couple.
Okay, next question is, do you have any suggestions on how to give a secure exam when you're limited to using a lecture hall?
Lecture hall, I guess, meaning, I guess, an amphitheater. That's that's when you say lecture hall, the first thing that comes to mind is like a movie theater. Definitely, if you can, the more people you can have in there, just as more sets of eyes, or if you have some type of video equipment that you can watch students from different angles, I think that's a help. Definitely secure, scrambled. And the longer the exam, the less likelihood that the student actually will have the same same questions, the same order. If you can space students out so they're not like this picture that's up here now, this ExamSoft picture, you know, rather than being right next to one another, if they're spread out. So maybe I've got, because the student in front of me is lower, so maybe I have them all, you know, one behind the other so that they can't see. They have to look around, head and or shoulders to see what's in front of them. But I like the idea of the more eyes around, the merrier. I think that does a lot, because even across the the room, I might see something that another teacher doesn't see, or one teacher is answering a question. He or she is now devoted to that one student, whereas I now can look. I'm 20 feet away, but now I'm watching my students, but I'm also watching his or her students as well.
Okay, next question is, any experience with using computers' privacy screens?
I'm sorry, computers, I didn't hear after that.
Sorry, computers' privacy screens, do you have any experience with using those? Or?
No, I don't see why that would be, I mean, that certainly would be an additional help. I've seen them at, when I'm at the bank, and they're pretty good, because if I'm trying to even read my own account information, I really can't. So that might be help. Again, that could be good and bad, because it's private to my screen, but potentially, is there a way on the outside of the frame I could write information? I could somehow get information onto that piece of plastic, or the molding around it. I don't know. So there's possibilities. I'm not sure I would discount it, but with everything, I'd want to make sure that it's tested, and I make sure that I couldn't do anything with it.
Have you had someone duplicate a green screen to show the proctor, but then be able to finish the exam later?
You could. I mean, have I had someone do it? No. Could you do it? Would I put it past some of my students? Not at all. And that's why I insist on, it's okay, you can show me your green screen, but I'm going to verify your upload. I'm going to look at exam taker activity. I'm going to verify your upload. When we did it with the seniors, that picture I showed you before, we made sure those of us, the tech support group, for the teachers that weren't real sure or were kind of uneasy about doing it the first time, we checked every exam. So we were checking 200 plus exams every day to make sure they were uploaded. So that's great, you're showing me a green screen. That's wonderful. But you know what? Sorry, I'm going to check for myself. And I think that's beyond best practice. To take the extra time, even as a whether you're an instructor or a proctor. You give your proctors the right level of access so they can see that kind of stuff. There has to be an upload date. And also make sure the upload date, it's not something that it makes sense. It shouldn't be something that was uploaded 2 minutes after the exam started either. But the time is reasonable. But definitely, I think as an instructor, as a proctor, you have to check and verify that upload, regardless of what a student may show you on his or her device.
Awesome. That is going to wrap it up for us today, everybody. I'd like to thank Al for being here and sharing some of these experiences with us. I know I've taken away quite a bit of information on different cheating methods and how to prevent them. Also want to remind everybody really quickly, when you X out of the webinar today, you will get a quick survey that pops up for you. As I said earlier, we would really appreciate you guys taking just a couple of seconds to fill those questions out, so that we know how to grow and continue to provide relevant content at these presentations. This session has been recorded, so you check your email here in the next couple of days. You will get a link to the recording to either use yourself or share with others. Also, as you can see on the screen,